Hi, this is Joseph. It's April 5th. It's Tuesday. This is a final update on the trade copier performance. I posted a video just a few hours ago, and there were a couple of trades that I was already in and had booked profits. But there were, as I was scanning through the charts, I believe I might have mentioned this one here with the euro dollar. We still had a target down here at 20. At that point, it looked like when I was doing the analysis this morning and doing the update, the euro dollar looked like probably like this. It was something like this. And it looked like it was sort of holding right down here at support, bounced up, didn't show a whole lot of volume, and then reversed. And you can see this bar right here. This was the entry. So this one gave us an entry, and we were able to short this at 52, traded it to the psychological level of 20. And then at about this time when this happened, there was also some breakouts here. There was another one here on the dollar yen. I wasn't trading the dollar yen up until that moment when it finally got its breakout as well. So you can see what was taking place here. My entry on this one was at with the double zero, and then the first target was at 20. These are psychological levels. So very often what I'll do, and I'm of the belief that you should never take a trade unless you have a target. I know that some people don't have that approach, and I'm not saying that they're right and or that or wrong and that I'm right. What I'm saying is that's just my approach. I always have a stop loss and I always have a target in mind when I'm going to trade. And the reason that I do that is that it sort of brings me with an awareness that I can only have so much as far as an expectation of what I could expect is going to develop for the day. There are some days when you can see that price just isn't going to go very far, and then there are other days you can see that it's setting up for a breakout and that it's possible that it could rally and move 50, 60, 80 pips. It really depends on the move and what's behind it. This obviously occurred later in the morning and after I had made my update, but this gave me a really good opportunity to trade this to not only the first psychological level of 20, but then the next psychological level of 50. So it's just a matter of managing managing these positions. I did the same thing here with the pound dollar. So the pound dollar also created a reversal. At about the time that I had made the video, I mentioned that we were up 20 pips. And then it kind of popped up, and I could see that it was going to be a test of this resistance area right here, since we're working inside of this overall consolidation range, and that it was likely to come back. Now, it may go down a little bit further at some point in the next session or two, but I'm done with the trade at this point. And this is similar to what we did yesterday. You can see that there's a ultra high range bar, and I'm obviously using some of these as potential targets. You can see that it's going to create, these ultra high range bars do create targets. Sometimes they'll give you an opportunity to trade breakouts, or if it's going to reverse and come back down and stay inside of that overall range of consolidation, it will approach that low and sometimes exceed it. So you can use these as general targets, but you want to be able to read the bars and to calculate and to determine what's going on. So we had, in addition to the Australian dollar, which is the one that I was talking about this morning, here was that final target there at 50, and then the whole thing just kind of reversed. Now, as far as what I mentioned, that there's a seasonality trade on the Australian dollar, that doesn't mean that this pullback right here is over with just yet. So keep that in mind. We're going to be looking for opportunities to go long until I get solid confirmation that this is over with and it's not going to go any higher. So this ended up producing 91 pips. At the time that I was making the video, we were at about, I think, 71 pips or something like that profit. And then it moved right into that area here at the 50 psychological level. And that resulted in 91 pips from the entry. The entry here was at 75.57. And then, of course, I had the pound dollar trade to the upside. And then after the video was completed, then we got the reversal. This reversal here resulted in 35 pips. This breakout here to the upside resulted in 48 pips. And then I have a trade here that I've already locked in profits here on the pound yen. Not a big trade, but it may end up developing into another opportunity later. That resulted in 17 pips. So the grand total today with all of the trades closed, including everything, I mean, this is every position, I don't have any losses today, is 240 pips. Now, if you're considering using my trade copier, number one, I have a limited number of trade copiers available anyway. Sometimes I actually run out for the month and I don't sell any more until the beginning of the month. I have to wait until the following month at the first, and then I open up new memberships, I should say. So right now, again, please be aware that if you're interested in the trade copier, I do have a fixed limited number of trade copiers available, the subscriptions. That's number one. Number two, the fact that I earn 240 pips, I want you to be aware that that's not always the case. I know that there are a lot of trade copier companies out there that will tell you, or signal services will tell you they're making hundreds of pips a day. Well, all of the trades that I'm showing you here are from the entry to the actual target where I close out the trade. This is not double counting. Some of those other services will actually put on 5, 10, 15 lots at a time. And then if they earn, let's say, 10 pips and they have 10 lots on the trade, they'll calculate that as a 100 pip profit trade. I think that's a bit misleading because you may not, as a subscriber, you may not be putting on 10 lots on the trade. And in order for you to evaluate the service, you want to understand that from the entry to the target, you want to know what the total number of profits are on the trade. How many pips did it actually move from the entry to where I take profits? And I find that that's a much better way to describe the service. So it doesn't matter how many lots I have on my trades, you should be able to figure out how profitable a service I'm providing. Again, sometimes you'll notice that some of these other services, they may say that they have 100 pips for the day, but you'll notice that they're just scalping and they're not really providing many opportunities. And if you're just going to use one lot, you're not going to make much money off of the trade or off of the service, and it may not justify the service. This is 240 pips from the entry to the final targets on each one of these trades, but I want you to keep in mind that I don't always get trades like this. So for example, if I go over here to the dollar yen, I like trading the dollar yen, but there are days that go by where I don't have any trades on the dollar yen. But when it provides a breakout, I'm right there to catch it, and then I calculate my take profit targets just like this, and I execute. So I can only execute when there's a setup, and I can only execute and take larger portions of these moves when there is a bigger move. If there isn't a bigger move, then I can't do anything about it. I would just trade, let's say, to psychological levels. But I'm very, very careful. When I see consolidation, whether it's accumulation, distribution, redistribution, reaccumulation, it doesn't matter. I want to make sure that I'm in the right trade. I don't trade in phase B. That's something that I say to all of my coaching clients, and they say the same thing with me. We all say the same thing. We don't trade in phase B. Phase B, what we do is we analyze phases of consolidation. If you're not too familiar with this, I'll just give you a basic rundown so that way if you're going to use my service, you know what it is that I'm doing when I execute a trade. And you want to know that if you're going to use my trade copier. You want to know how much experience the trader has and what kind of system he's using. So I use Copier principles, and I'm analyzing phases of accumulation or distribution, and then we dissect or analyze and calculate each part of the phases of consolidation so that we can determine when to get into the trade with the smart money. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail beyond that, because if you're just going to, if you're just interested in using the trade copier, you just want to know how much experience I have. I've been trading for 22 years and what kind of system I'm using. And it's primarily technical. But I'm very, very careful. So far, I don't have any losing positions just yet, but occasionally I do experience a loss. And when I experience a loss, it's relatively easy to earn back the loss on the very next trade. It's just a matter of waiting for it, waiting for the next trade to set up. So again, 240 pips. Please be aware that you're not always going to get 240 pips. Sometimes it's just going to be 60 pips. Sometimes it's just going to be 30 pips. It depends on how flat. And you can look at the charts. If you're using my service and you see a relatively tight range of consolidation like this, then I'm probably not going to get too many trades, if any at all. And I don't scalp. I wait for moves just like this. However, 240 pips on a decent day like today is pretty common, and it is typical. I can execute these trades on multiple currency pairs. You can also control the number of lots with the trade copier. You can control the number of lots, and you can also set it up so that once the trade copier has exceeded the number of positions that you're comfortable with, it will not execute any more trades, even though I may have 2 or 3 trades open. So again, you can control all of that. There's instructions on how to do that. With the trade copier, there's a manual, and I also provide some video instructions on how to set up the trade copier. Thanks for watching.